Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Is this okay? Can you hear me? Okay. So my name is Michele with one L. That's my mnemonic device for you to remember my name. And if you're on Twitter, please give me a follow at Shelly, because it's one of my life goals to become a famous person on Twitter, so you could really help me out. So my talk is called It Takes a Village to Make a Programmer. It's a story in 2 parts. I'm going to first tell you everything that I did to change careers in a year, and I'm going to finish with things that you can do to help other people like me, or be a superhero, as we were just talking about. So, my story. I went to school for teaching. I wanted to teach English language arts, reading and writing, to kids in middle school and high school. I unfortunately graduated at the height of the recession in the United States, so the jobs were affected. So I ended up substitute teaching for about 3 years, and I found it was the most demoralizing experience of my life. And I realized, okay, I'd have to move away to get a job. So if I was going to move away, I was going to move far, far away. So I moved to Berlin, where I got a job as an office manager with a tour operator. I just wanted to try something different for a little while, so I had a few options. I was going from teaching English language arts to, I thought about maybe being a UX designer. I taught English as a foreign language for a little while. I could go back to teaching if I wanted. I could keep this office job that I had, or maybe I could try something totally different. So one day at my office manager job, we got a bill from our programmers for this really simple customer feedback form, and the bill was outrageous. First of all, it was so expensive, and they didn't even do a very good job. I had to write back and forth with them several times about little things to fix that made a huge difference. So I was in German classes at the time. I went out with my classmates, and I said to them over a beer, "Oh my God, you should see this bill that we got today. I should be a programmer. I could do it better than them." But I didn't really take myself seriously, as one doesn't at that time. And one of my classmates did. So she emailed me about a course that was happening in Berlin in the coming months. It was really expensive, though. So I wrote an email to my brother, who has a successful business of his own, and I said, "Hey, want to sponsor me?" And of course, I didn't really get an answer, so I had to write back a second time saying, "Okay, no, seriously, will you really sponsor me for this course?" And he gave me the brotherly response of, "Okay, fine, but prove to me what you can do afterwards." So I said, "Okay." 4 weeks into the course, with just knowledge of HTML and CSS, I participated in my first hackathon. It was put on by Berlin Geekettes, a women in tech group. And this was where I had my moment of, oh my God, this is what I need to do. When I was sitting there in this room full of people who were busy working together, taking ideas that had only existed inside of their head and making it into something that other people could use and do things with. I just thought that was amazing. I said, that's so powerful. I want to be able to do that, and I want to do that, and I want to do that, and I want to do that. So a few months later, I quit my office job. I decided I needed to follow my passion and try out this programming thing. So I returned the keys, and I said, thank you very much. A few weeks later, some friends of mine were going to a conference called Eurocamp in Berlin. They had gotten tickets through Rails Girls, but there were none left, and I really wanted to go, so they said, oh, follow the main Twitter account, maybe someone will sell you theirs. So I started following the account, and I saw this tweet from some guy named Bruno who said, oh, I have my Eurocamp ticket and I can't go. Let's make it count. Give me a good reason, and it's free. Hashtag give something back. So I tweeted, and I said, yo, I just quit my job. I'm really passionate. And lucky for me, I won the ticket, but it wasn't exactly free. He said, you have 3 rules. You have to do all of these things. Number 1, you have to have fun, and have a lot of fun. I said, okay, I can do that. Number 2, find my friend Justine. She's speaking there. Give her a hug. I said, okay, I can do that. And he said, number 3, give back. I don't care what it is, what you do, but somehow do something and give back to the community. And that's part of what I'm trying to do right now. So I attended the conference, and as I believe Adrian was saying yesterday, a conference is much more than just the talks. There were so many effects that came out of this I never could have imagined beforehand. First of all, I participated in my first Rails Girls workshop, and that was when I decided I did not want to learn Rails first. I wanted to start with just Ruby and just JavaScript. I just felt like there was too much magic happening I didn't understand. I wanted to know for myself. One of the girls who I attended with has gone on to become one of my best friends in Berlin. I saw the concept of lightning talks for the first time, and that was where I had my first idea that I wanted to become a speaker. Maybe this was something I could do. And finally, at the Rails Girls workshop, I saw a woman give a talk about how she changed careers 1 year after taking her first Rails Girls workshop. And unfortunately, that's all I remember from the talk, because I was sitting there with my arms crossed, just thinking to myself how I was going to do it, and I was going to do it faster and better. But since then, I've given this talk where she was in the audience and we met, and she's cool with it, so everything's fine. Okay, so I said I quit my job. 5 days. That was the number of days that I had that were super productive. I was working 5 or 6 hours a day. I had a subscription to teamtreehouse.com. It's a subscription-based video tutorial site. And 5 days of real solid work. And after that, everything went downhill. I don't know if many of you have tried being unemployed as an adult or working from home, and it just does not work for everyone. So, lucky for me, I met this guy named Franks through my extended Twitter network who was interested in learning about teaching, whereas I was interested in learning about programming, and those were both our areas of respective expertise. So he went on to become my mentor, and he spent a few days a week with me, a few sessions where he would pair program with me. He was there every step of the way where I started developing my own web application from scratch. He wrote homework assignments for me a couple of times. If we weren't hanging out, I could write to him and say, hey, I don't understand this concept, and he would whip me up a gist really quick, explaining it with some examples. And it was really one of the greatest things that happened to me, because I know that without him, I never would have made the progress that I did. Soon after that, I found out about this program in Berlin called Hackership. It's based on the Hacker School in New York, if you're familiar with that. Basically, it's a retreat for hackers of any level of experience where you could come and be surrounded with other people who are learning new concepts and working on something. One of the greatest parts about it was that every Friday we had demo day, where you had to show everyone what you were working on for the week and also get experience with public speaking. So I decided to continue with this web application I started with Franks, where I built it with no frameworks and no libraries except for some crypto stuff. And the thing that I'm most proud of from that is the user authentication system that I wrote that was really secure and nice. So to recap, January 22nd, 2013 was the first day of my front-end web development course, which my brother sponsored me for. It was when I wrote my very first Hello World. And January 21st of this year, so under a year, I received not 1 but 2 junior developer job offers. Thanks. So I accepted one at Sociomantic Labs in Berlin. It's a really awesome company. We do programmatic advertising, and they have the same kind of mentality that I do, whereas if we don't like something that exists already, we build it ourselves. It's really awesome. We have employees all over the world, and we're always hiring if you're interested. I work there on a team with 4 other people who are also career changers, and we all kick ass every day together, and it's awesome. In the time that I was waiting for my visa to get processed, I had some free time, and I decided to apply to a couple of conferences, including RubyConf Uruguay. But something happens when you're changing careers and you're unemployed for 7 months, and you run out of money. So unfortunately, I was like, oh no, I'm accepted at this conference, but there's no way I can afford to go. At the urging of some people, I decided to make an Indiegogo, and I have to thank several of my biggest sponsors, Bruno, Dennis, David, Seth, and Sven, along with 15 other people who are the reason that I'm standing up here on the stage today. So the community continues to amaze me with how many kind and generous people are out there and willing to help. So now I'd like to tell you how to help in your own village in case you need some more ideas. I'm going to go through a bunch of options, so hopefully there's something for everyone in here. If you have a little bit of time, something really simple you can do is give encouragement. There were so many days when I was making this journey where I thought to myself, what are you thinking? You are the stupidest person on the planet. You're never going to make it. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you should do something else. But inevitably, someone would come along and say, hey, what do you do in Berlin? And I'd say, oh, I'm changing careers. I'm learning to program. And I would see their face light up, and they'd be like, no way, that's so cool. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, right, it is. I'm kind of following my dream. It is cool, yeah. And that was so powerful. It's really made a huge difference. So just as simple as saying nice, encouraging things to people. Something else you can do is expose your passions, whether you have a Twitter account, a blog, or just on Facebook, or speaking about other people. If you're open with what you're passionate about and things you're interested in, you're inevitably going to find other people who share those interests, maybe other people who think, oh, no one else is interested in that. And that can really open a lot of doors for people and open the exchange of ideas and make everything better. If you have a little bit of time or a lot of time, quality beginner-friendly resources. If you have a little bit of time, what you can do is share the good ones. You know that all beginner materials are not created equal. There's such a wealth of information out there. If you can direct people a little bit to something that's better, that can be really helpful. On the other hand, if you have a lot of time, you can actually start creating some yourself. Try and put yourself in the shoes of a beginner and think of everything that you need to know to get started with something. And maybe even work with the beginner to see if you can come up with something helpful for them. Maybe you don't have time, but you have money. You can be a sponsor. You can sponsor someone for a workshop, a course, a subscription service like I mentioned, because there are so many excuses that people can make for not starting something new that you can usually talk them out of a lot of them. But if money is an issue or they're not willing to put the risk in money-wise, you can take away that last excuse and get them to get started. You can also send someone to a conference. Depending on the conference, you'll need a little or a lot of money for this. But as we spoke about yesterday, the conference has so many benefits. It's not just attending talks and learning about stuff. It's networking, it's workshops, it's new ideas. It's much more than just a little event. If you have a lot of time, you can become a mentor. As I said before, this is one of the greatest things that you can do for a person. There are so many ways that you can do it as well. It doesn't necessarily mean one thing. You can come up with your own way to do this. You could meet with someone for lunch. You could have a pair programming session. You could email advice. In my journey, I found out about this really cool thing. It's called the distributed mentoring movement. And if you go to mentoring.is, they'll explain it to you, where basically you add a little /mentoring section to your website, and you kind of say, hey, I'm open to mentoring. This is how you can get in touch with me. And I think it's a really cool idea. If you have space and time, you can create safe spaces. Safe spaces can mean a lot of things. It could mean a hackathon. It could be a workshop. It could be a study group. Safe spaces are really important. It's any space where you feel comfortable enough to challenge yourself and take risks and stretch your limits. It's where you find out about things you never knew that you could do before. For example, one for me was that hackathon, and I want to take a moment to talk about women-only hackathons or queer-only hackathons or any kind of minority-only event, and I want to say that they are not exclusive. Some people have this wrong idea that, oh, that's not fair, they're not letting everyone do this. But the whole idea of these whatever-only events is it's including people who otherwise would have been excluded or felt excluded or excluded themselves. So they're really important right now. Hopefully someday we won't need them anymore, but right now they're important. And finally, if you have courage, I really urge you to tell your story, especially if you have a story that breaks the mold of the person who started programming when they were 8 years old. I took this quote from a really great movie called Misrepresentation about women in the media, and they're making one for men too. And it's, you cannot be what you cannot see. Of course, there are exceptions, but it's really helpful if you can have a hero or somebody that you can identify with, that you see parts of yourself in. And if you have a story that's a little bit different, you can be a hero for other people. So what now? I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the hard work that I did put in, because without that, all the help that these people gave me would have not been nearly as effective. So hard work is important too. And if you're still not convinced for why you should help people, I have this quote from Tal Ben-Shahar. He's one of the pioneering positive psychologists. It says, "There's so much benefit to the person who contributes to others that I often think there is no more selfish act than a generous act." So what that means for you is doing these things for other people, you're not just helping them, you're going to help yourself in ways that maybe you'd never thought of before. So now I would ask you to please return to your villages and make some programmers. I also want to address, if there are people who are in here who are not developers, make sure you understand that this is not only for developers, it's for any job, anything that you're doing, you can make a difference like this. And if you're in here, I think some of the Rails girls were attending today, if you're not a developer yet, you can find people, maybe people in this room, who will be willing to do these things for you. I have some resources. I'll tweet out the link to where I post these slides. And I want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for the people you've helped, the people you're helping, and the people that you will help in the future. Thanks.